Happy Saturday. Assuming it's Saturday where you're living, it's Saturday here, it's a rainy day, it's wonderful. I had a subscriber, a new subscriber from today, thank you very much for subscribing, who asked about the Sendy Aiva. This person wants to purchase a Sendy Aiva or is thinking about it, but at $600 it's going to really limit his or her ability to purchase a DAC amp. So the question posed to me was, do I need a DAC or an amplifier? Do I need an amplifier? Let's just put it this way. Do I need an amplifier to have the Sendy Aiva perform at its peak? The answer is yes. If that's the question, do I need it to get the very best out of this headphone? The answer is yes. Do I need an amplifier to listen comfortably, to enjoy the headphones? No, you don't. Can you enjoy these headphones off of a mobile device? You can, yes. So before we get to all the nitty-gritty, let me tell you a little bit about the other nitty-gritty, which is the impedance and the sensitivity of these headphones. The impedance is 32 ohms, sensitivity is 96 decibels. I'm no electrician. I know very little about the laws of electromagnetism. However, what I can tell you generally about headphones and impedance is this. Impedance determines how much power is required in order to drive the headphone, meaning how much energy needs to go into the magnet, the coil, so that they can vibrate and fluctuate the membrane that's inside. The impedance requirement depends a lot on the size of the magnet, the type of magnet that's being used, the type of material in the membrane, the size of the material in the membrane. And all of that, and probably a little bit more, helps determine the impedance requirement. In this instance, 32 ohms. What does that mean? It means that a mobile device will in fact be able to drive these headphones, meaning you can use your iPhone, your Android phone, your mobile device of any sort, plug in these headphones, and you will get sound. And you will get fairly good sound. The problem is that the sensitivity is 96 decibel. What is sensitivity? Sensitivity is the headphone will increase by 96 decibels for every watt of power that's given to it. And I think that's what it is. I think it's a watt of power. Is 96 decibels a lot? No, it's not terrible, but it's also not phenomenal. It's middle of the road. 96 decibels is the middle of the road. Ultimately, what that means is that if you have an older generation phone that has kind of a lackluster amplifier DAC module inside, it will mean that these headphones will not perform at their peak. They won't perform at their best, and you'll probably hear some distortion. You may not hear all of everything that's going on in a song because the phone or the mobile device simply doesn't have the ability to drive the headphones. The other issue is whether or not your mobile device has enough battery, or if the battery is a bad battery, then you're going to just deplete the battery sooner than later because you have the headphones plugged in because they're drawing so much power from the mobile device. That being said, you can use your phone and you'll get good sound out of it. But let's do a test. So this subscriber asked me to listen to 3 songs. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to listen to 3 songs on a desktop amp, and I'm going to listen to 3 songs on my iPhone 10 using the Lightning to 3.5mm adapter. But before we go there, this subscriber has a conundrum. And the conundrum is, if he or she buys the Sendys, then this person will not have a lot of cash left to buy a desktop amp if they choose to go down that direction. So what can I do? What can I recommend? Well, that's an easy recommendation. And I have a go-to recommendation for any person who has a limited budget under $100 for a DAC amp, and that is the FX Audio DAC X6. This is it. This is my go-to. Every time somebody's asked me, hey man, I don't have enough money to spend on an amplifier, can you recommend one? This is the one I recommend because I use it all the time. It's fantastic. It gives you clear, relatively undistorted sound. It gets very loud, and it's got 3 inputs. It's got coaxial, USB, and optical. There's a lot of high-end, more pricey amplifiers that don't have 3 inputs. What does 3 inputs mean for you? Well, if you have 3 different devices, you can have them all plugged into this thing. You have a CD player, plug it into one of the, probably the optical or the coaxial. You have a DVD player, plug it into that, so then you can output the sound through this, put on your headphones, and watch on your monitor. You have your computer, plug it into the USB. So you have multiple ways of using this one thing. If you have other devices, hook it up to this thing. And that is bang for your buck. You're paying $65 for this. You're getting 3 amplifiers in one, essentially, right? And on top of that, this thing works really, really well. I've had it since February 8th, 2019, as it says so up there. And I've used it consistently since then. Months and months of using this for gaming, for movies, for YouTube, for listening to music. This thing does really well. Now, is it the best out there? Absolutely not. Is it comparable to, say, the Schiit Magni? No, I don't think so. The Magni is a little bit more expensive, probably double the price, really. And the Magni has a different sound signature. I don't think I prefer the Magni sound signature over the FX Audio. The Magni has its place. It's very analytical, in my opinion, where the FX Audio is analytical. It's clear, but it's not in your face, all the detail. So it's a little bit more laid back than, say, the Schiit Magni, in my opinion. Okay, so this is the desktop amp that I'm going to use with its built-in DAC, and then we're going to go to my headphone. So let's just start it. We're going to start with the first song that this person suggested is Calypso by Sorrow. The second one's going to be Tomorrow by Daughter, and the third is going to be AI by Red. So here we go. The volume is about 7 o'clock. And there's this bass guitar that just starts up very soothing, and there's a reverberation in the headphone, in the ear cup. And then there's a bass hit, and then the rest of the song, all the other instruments come in, other guitar. And there's a clear separation. So there's the bass guitar that's in the background, and then there's the other guitar, whatever guitar it is, it's in the middle of the stage, and now there's a kind of this soothing, haunting vocalist that's in the background. Now there's layers. Okay, so there's layers of music. The bass at the very furthest, then there's the vocalist, and then right in front of the vocalist is the other guitar. And then there's also, I don't know if it's some sort of clicking cymbal. It's not really cymbal, it's like chains clicking to each other. It's really hard to explain. I don't know what instrument it is, but that's on the left and right and further back. It's really interesting to see how much depth this headphone has. Not only is there soundstage left and right, but there's also forward and backwards. And this amplifier, clearly, it's able to let these headphones be themselves. Let these headphones describe the music to me in this way. By the way, this song is very nice, very soothing. I think I'm going to add it to my test playlist. Now I'm going to increase it to about 9 o'clock. And at 9 o'clock, it's very loud for me. Very comfortable loud. No distortion. I'm going to turn it up to about 11 o'clock. Still no distortion. I'm going to take it up to 12 o'clock. And the bass becomes much more pronounced around 12 o'clock. And the frequencies start melding a little bit. It's not as clear. So there's not as much definition amongst all the instruments, the vocalists at the higher volume. But I gotta tell you, the bass is really fun to listen to on this headphone with this amp. You know, it's kind of there's a low rumble, but it's not overpowering. It's really nice. Soundstage left and right continues. Okay. I wonder. I couldn't hear. I think maybe one of my dogs was barking. I couldn't hear. I thought I heard one of them, and I know which one it was. So be quiet. Okay. Sorry about that. So here's the thing with this amplifier. Going from say 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, there's a difference, right? The volume goes up significantly. Going from 9 o'clock to 11 o'clock, the volume goes up, but not substantially. Going from 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock, again, it's not a substantial difference. So what I mean to say is it's a linear progression, but the louder you get, it doesn't mean that you're going to get exponentially more volume out of it. Going from 7 to 12, huge difference. But between 9 and 12, not as big a difference as it is between 7 and 9. Does that kind of make sense? So the more volume you increase on that knob, you know, it's putting out the most that it can, but there's going to be a point at which you're going to say to yourself, okay, it's at 12 o'clock and I want it ears piercing. I want my head, you know, caving in, and it's not doing that. Well, that's why, because there's a limit at which this thing just can't really push more than what it's giving you. Now, there's a lot more. There's half the knob still left to turn. So what could happen? Well, a lot could happen. I could blow out my eardrums. You know, I can destroy the headphone. But going beyond 12 or 1 o'clock is probably not in your interest, and definitely not in the interest of the headphones. You want a comfortable listening level, and you want to be able to listen to it by drowning everything else out. And at 12 o'clock, I couldn't even hear my dog barking, assuming she barked. And I know it was her. It wasn't Charlie. Okay, so that was the DAC X6. Now I'm going to switch to my iPhone and listen to the same song on my iPhone. Let's see here. Okay. All right, plugging it in to the iPhone, and I'm going to play Calypso again. Here we go. The volume is, I would say, about 75%. The rumble is there in the bass, but not quite as much as on the DAC X6. Now, from memory, I'm going to try to increase the volume on my iPhone to match what I believe it sounded like at 7 o'clock on the FX audio. And that is approximately 80% of the volume. I hear the details, they're just not as pronounced. So here's the thing. On the FX audio, I could hear the layering, right? Bass at the back, the vocalist, and then the guitar. On the iPhone, the bass is in the back, but I can barely hear it. The vocalist is basically at the same level on the stage as the other guitar. So the separation in the soundstage, not as good as on the FX audio. You know, one of the other issues is, so I'm going to increase the volume, and I'm going to tell you what the issue is. I'm going to increase it to, say, 95%. And at 95%, the volume is probably close to about 11 o'clock on the FX audio. And here's the issue. When I increase the volume on the DAC X6 on the FX audio, the rumbling in the bass also increased. Not so much on the iPhone. I really can't hear the rumbling. It's there, and there are moments when I hear it, but it's not as pronounced as it was on the FX audio. I'm going to increase it to 100% volume. So the difference between 95 and 100% is marginal at best. Is 100% the same volume as 12 o'clock on the FX audio? Probably. Yeah, that's pretty close. But the detail is not there. Soundstage is not quite the same. And it's not as pleasurable because the ear cups were not, vibrating with that bass as it was with the FX audio. Okay, so that's the end of the song. What have we learned on this song? Well, my opinion is that the FX audio beats the iPhone, hands down. Not only do you have more room to play with the volume, but I'm getting more detail, more soundstage, and it's much more pleasurable on the FX audio. It feels, it's clearer on the FX audio than it is on the iPhone. Now, could it be different on an Android device? Absolutely, depending on what circuitry they're using. Okay, let's get back. Now let's go to Tomorrow by Daughter. I'm on the FX audio. And the volume is at about 7 o'clock. And the song starts up real quiet. And then there's string instruments of some sort that just start popping in. And there's a guitar. Very soothing, soft, clear separation left and right. The string instrument that started it has faded away now. The vocalist has come in. And the vocalist is center stage. The guitar is, I would say, if we're looking at a stage, the guitar is probably a few steps behind the vocalist. So once again, soundstage is present, left, right, front, and back. I'm going to increase to 9 o'clock. So increase to 9 o'clock is a linear response, meaning the soundstage is still there. It doesn't change the soundstage at all. It just increases the volume, which is very, very good for a DAC amp. I mean, that's what you want a DAC amp to do, but there's a lot of cheap and even expensive DAC amps that when you increase the volume, some of the sound stages kind of gets muddled or goes away, and that's a problem. But it seems to be fine on the FX audio. The vocal is very clear. There's no graininess at all in the music. I'm going to increase to about 11 o'clock. And the difference between 9 o'clock and 11 o'clock is minuscule. 12 o'clock now. Difference between 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock also small. I'm going to take it to 1 o'clock. Ah, there you go. So here's what happens. The difference between 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock is very small. The difference between 12 o'clock and 1 o'clock is bigger. So the volume output from 12 to 1 is more than the volume output between 11 and 12. Does that kind of make sense? At 1 o'clock, the music starts getting a little bit grainy. Let me try again. Okay, so it's not grainy as much, a little bit of distortion in the background, like a hiss. And it's not overpowering at all. It doesn't take away from anything in the song. It's just I'm listening for it and I'm picking it up, but it doesn't really interact much with the song at all. The sound stage is still present at 1 o'clock. Still very pleasurable. Vocalist still very much center. But like I said with the last song, the higher I increase the volume, the little bit more muddled the frequencies become. And by muddled, I mean they kind of start meshing together. So the last time I did a video, I gave the example of a Rubik cube, not Rubik's cube. You know what I'm talking about. Rubik's cube, something like that. And the perfect description of the song would be all the colors in their place, all the blocks in the right color in their place. That's not what happens with the FX audio. Once you take it past, say, 12 o'clock, the colors start melding a little bit. So you have a couple of blocks of red that's actually in the blue section, a couple of blue blocks in the yellow section, a couple of yellow blocks in the red section. And that doesn't mean the structure of the song falls apart. It doesn't. I mean, the block is still there. You know what the form of the cube is. You know where the colors actually go, and most of it is where it's supposed to be. It's just little pieces here and there that are not exactly where they should be. And so that's the way I would describe this. The more in volume you increase, the less detail you will get out of it. It just starts getting a little bit, it's a little bit of that distortion creeping in, a little bit of the frequencies bleeding into the other frequencies. Does it destroy the song? No. If you're looking for an absolute analytical, then no, the FX audio is not going to do it for you. You're going to have to step up your game and buy something that's a couple $100 at least in order to get there. But short of that, if you just want to enjoy your music, your movies, whatever, then yeah, it works perfectly fine. Will you notice some of the distortion in the background? You might. You absolutely might, depending on what you're listening to. But it may not matter to you because it's kind of the whole song, the whole presentation is still pretty pleasant. Okay, so let's go to the iPhone. Come on. Here we go. Okay, so we do Tomorrow Live by Daughter. Here we go on the iPhone. And my volume is at about 80%. And it's really quiet. I mean, the song starts up quietly anyway, but it's still pretty quiet. There is soundstage, What I'm going to listen for is whether it's the same type of soundstage I heard on the FX audio. Yeah, no, I don't think it is. What's going on is that the vocalist is center stage, but so is the guitar, and they're kind of competing with each other here. Some of her vocals gets interrupted with the guitar, whereas with the FX audio, it kept it quieter. The guitar was in the background a little bit more, and her vocals were coming out more clearly, more powerfully, more accurately. Okay, I'm going to increase the volume to about 90%. And at 90%, I would say it's close to 11 o'clock on the FX audio. I'm going to increase to 12 or 100%, excuse me. It kind of gets muddy. Yeah, it gets muddy at 100%. And I wasn't hearing the same type of, I wasn't hearing the muddiness on the FX audio. So here's what I mean. At 12 o'clock on the FX audio equals 100% on the iPhone, roughly speaking. At 12 o'clock, I didn't hear any muddiness. I didn't hear any real distortion. On the iPhone at 100%, which equates to 12 o'clock on the FX audio, at 100%, I hear muddiness. Things are just not clear. Her vocals get kind of just bombarded with all the other frequencies, and it just starts falling apart a little bit. You know, if you were just listening to this on your iPhone and nothing else, you hadn't heard this song on anything else, then you may not notice a difference. But I can, because I did just the A and B here. Okay, so that's enough of that. I don't need to hear any more to know. All right, so let's go back to the FX audio, and we're going to the last song, AI by Red. Now, I think this is metal. This is what you call metal? What you call metal? This is, I think it's a metal band, right? Let's just play it. Here we go. Volume is at 7 o'clock, and this is that rumbling in the right ear cup, and then it's moving left and right. I'm going to increase the volume to 9 o'clock. Vocals are clear. I would say the soundstage on this, everything is pretty much flat. So everything is even on the stage. But I can still hear the vocals come through from all the other instruments. There's not much rumbling bass in this. There's drums in this song. The impact is kind of lackluster. It's not very impactful. I'm going to increase to 12 o'clock. So what I said about the increasing the volume still stands true. Uh, at 12 o'clock, again, all the frequencies start melding together a little bit more, and uh, the vocals are not as clear at 12 o'clock than they are at slightly lower volume. It doesn't mean that they're distorted. It just means that, all the other instruments are beginning to creep in a little bit more, and now your ears are competing to listen to, well, do I try to pay attention to the vocals? Do I pay attention to the other instruments? Maybe you call it distortion. I don't think that's really distortion. It's just, the increase in the volume creates a little bit of imbalance on this song, whereas not so much on the other two. Okay, I'm going to stop it, and then I'm going to go to the iPhone. And the volume is about 80% on the iPhone. Playing AI by Red. The vocal is not as pronounced as it is on the FX audio. So I told you that all of the song seems to be on the same level on the stage. Everything is even. So the sound stage is left and right, but there's no front and back. That's fine, except that when you do that, all the instruments, vocalists have to have clarity, and everything needs to come out. On the iPhone, it's not so much. It's a little bit more difficult to hear the vocals clearly than it is on the FX audio. And at 80%, I would say it's close to like 9 o'clock on the FX audio in volume. I'm going to increase the volume to, say, 100%. So this is strange. So 100% volume on the iPhone, I think it's more pleasurable than at 12 o'clock, same song on the FX audio. Now remember, as I said before, 100% on the iPhone equates to 12 o'clock on the FX audio. I don't know why it's doing that on this song, but it just is. It's a little bit more pleasurable on the iPhone than it is on the FX audio at that volume. But overall, I'm getting the impression that the FX audio simply just produces the song a little bit clearer and with a more sound stage, right? The more separation of the instruments. That's what I mean. More separation of the instruments than it does on the iPhone. Okay. So I think that pretty much takes care of the test. I don't need to listen to the last minute of the song. What are my impressions? Here's what I do say, not I would. Here's what I say. I think that if you want to buy the Sendy Aiva, you should buy the Sendy Aiva. If that's what you want to do, and you have the money and this is the right financial decision for you, then yes, get the Sendy Aiva. I have no complaints about it. I mean, it's not my review. I haven't done the review yet, but I don't have any complaints about it. Do you need to get an amplifier? No, you don't need to get an amplifier. But if you do want to get an amplifier, get the FX Audio. It's a good amplifier. It'll last you for a long time. And if you spend $65 on this amplifier and you love it, then what are the odds that you're really going to go out and immediately want to spend money on another amplifier? Fairly small, right? especially when you get all these options with this amplifier. 3 inputs, you have the ability to really drive not only the Sendy Aivas, but I can tell you that this amp also drives much more difficult headphones. There's Fostex T50RPs that are notoriously difficult to drive. This thing will drive them not to their max volume by any stretch of the imagination. It gets really tough at maximum volume to get the T50RPs to max out. But it can work on those. It's not great, but it works. But you're not going to go out and buy the T50RPs because you're a smart person, and the T50RPs are, are difficult headphones to drive, and you really need to invest in some amperage, some voltage, so to say, to really use the T50RPs and their mods to their fullest potential. Bottom line, you do not need to get a desktop amp to enjoy the Sendy Aiva. If you want to fully use your Sendy Aiva and you want to use it to its peak, then yes, you should probably get it. But if you just want to enjoy your music every once in a while, or you're thinking about getting an expensive DAC amp that's, I don't know, $200, $300, $400. Let's say you're looking at the JDS Labs amplifiers, then you don't need to do it. Wait, save up your money, get the one that you really want. You have no need to get the FX Audio. Save yourself the $60, $70. Put that towards the amplifier you really want to get. But if you don't really care about upgrading and you just want an amplifier that'll work, and you don't really want to fuss with amplifiers in the future, the FX Audio is a great choice. So that's my recommendation. Yes, the FX Audio works great. Yes, the Sendy Aivas do not need it. And yes, these are still fantastic headphones. Everyone have a wonderful weekend. If you have any questions, leave a comment. And I hope that this helps the individual who contacted me today. And once again, thank you very much for subscribing. And the LCD2 review continues. Hopefully tomorrow, another video. Everybody have a good night.